Hey guys, it's Nichole Eaton with the Rock Your Soul book and podcast, where we talk about how to hack your mindset, grow your intuition, and live your best life. You can support this podcast by subscribing, leaving a positive review, and screenshot and sharing on social media. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Nichole Eaton, and I am so ecstatic to have you here. As always, I appreciate when you share this content with anybody who you feel might also be inspired. Today's episode is so special, and you guys are going to want to listen the whole way through because the entire thing from start to finish is chock full of awesome information. I sat down with a good friend, a beautiful lit up soul, somebody who's a personal inspiration to me, who you're going to want to connect with and follow, Ashley Brink, as we talk about her journey of teen pregnancy, a cancer diagnosis in her early 20s, and how she came out on the other side, intentionally living and being blessed. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I'm so excited to have Ashley on, guys, because she's just one of my favorite humans. Like, you have to meet her and you have to be around her in person because she just has this bright light energy. And I thought, she would be the perfect person to come on and share a little bit about her story, and a little bit about just finding balance and being intentional with your life. So I'm excited to have you. I think people are going to get so much out of this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Obviously, based on some of my history and past experiences, I've really found kind of a different meaning for my life. And I've just really been focused on choosing to be more intentional with every single day, every moment, the relationships that I have, the interactions that I have, just the things that I fill my day with, period. And how they're really edifying my soul.
I'm curious in regards to, we just mentioned your history a couple different times, and I was curious if you want to share a little bit about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually a teen mom. I was pregnant at 17 years old, married my husband when I was 18, had my second child in my 20s. And then I was faced with two serious diagnoses. One was rheumatoid arthritis in my early 20s. And then when I was 24 years old, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And as you can imagine, being a young mom in my 20s, I just did not see that coming, right? It made no sense in my logical mind. And it really, it was a blessing in my life. And I'm able to say that now. When I was walking through it, I wasn't able to say that, but it really was a blessing because it brought up so much. It was just it put me on this path where I consciously started to choose different for my life. That was my wake up call. That was my aha moment. When you're facing health concerns like that, and, you have the thought of maybe not being able to interact with your children the way that you want to, what is 10 years going to look like? Am I going to be here? Am I truly waking up every single day and walking in my purpose? Or am I just waking up and getting on the hamster wheel, that society has kind of put in front of us? So for me, that was just really, really pivotal. And I'm so grateful. Obviously, I'm, a cancer survivor. I'm really grateful for that experience, but I'm grateful for the experiences that it brought into my life beyond that diagnosis. It's kind of like things fell apart so that I could then reconstruct them to what I truly wanted for my life.
It's interesting because I find a lot of times people who are cancer survivors, or particularly clients I've worked with that are cancer survivors, really have this before and after version of themselves. You aren't the same before and after in a lot of different ways, in a lot of good ways, and a lot of challenging ways, I think. So I'm just curious, if you could give me a snapshot of who were you before this diagnosis?
It's funny because I don't really know who I was before then. I don't think then I knew who I was, right? I knew that I was a mom. I knew that I was a wife. I knew that I was a hard worker, for a company that I loved. And again, it was kind of a mix between constantly just trying to prove something for the sake of proving something, there's kind of a stigma around being a teen mom, being married at 18 years
Yeah.
old, you know,
Yep.
all of these things. And it's like, I was just so stuck in not being that stigma that I really just wasn't stepping into my greatness of like who I actually wanted to be. It was just proving to everybody that I wasn't who they thought I was. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I can relate, and I know some people know my story a little bit, but it correlates to that first half of yours is, you know, I got married at 19 and found out I was pregnant a couple weeks after I turned 20. And, you know, it was just there is kind of this stigma, and I think that's an interesting lesson just in regards to when you do things out of order or you do things in a different way than society wants you to, you do feel this sense of obligation to be like, no, that's not who I am. And I, you know, and it's so external of trying to become better, prove yourself or push harder or do things to make other people see you in a different light. And it is wild how our past can kind of come forward into our personality.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you get this. I'm just like trying to imagine being in my early 20s, getting this diagnosis. Like, what was that like? Like, what were your thoughts around that? I'm trying to imagine that
You know,
conversation.
yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of shock. Um, like I said, at 24 years old, you know, that's not typical, right?
Right.
And I just remember it's odd because I do remember having such a peace. And I talk about this. I never I was never afraid that I was going to die per se. I never had that fear. I think I kind of went into autopilot a little bit. And I think as women and as mothers and as wives, we tend to do this period. But I just kind of went into this autopilot where I was like, head down, we are going to get through this. Right. And I had a great support system and I'm very lucky for that. But I think it was just taking it one day at a time, but just knowing that it was where I was, it wasn't who I was. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Obviously, this came out of nowhere, and we're given these experiences, and it truly molds and shapes and almost kind of breaks us apart a little bit to kind of develop us into the next version of ourselves, right? So that version of me, you know, pre-cancer and even during my cancer and even after my cancer is a completely different version because each part of that time in my life was a different lesson. You know, it was different things that I had to walk through and different realizations that I had to have. But I will tell you, you know, what I consider one of my biggest blessings of going through my cancer was that everything in my life that was not built on a foundation, right? So I hadn't had the chance yet to develop the foundation of who I wanted to be and who I was. And so it's kind of funny when you go through something like that, things just kind of fall apart and it gives you that opportunity to just rebuild and actually create that foundation that you want and make decisions for your life moving forward and just, you know, kind of draw the line and say, this is what I choose from here on out. Like I choose myself, I choose my dreams, I choose, you know, to live in every single moment because the truth is that nothing is promised, you know. It it seemed random, but the truth is that it could happen to any one of us at any second, you know, and who we come out of after going through something like that, I think says a lot.
You know, I read this book called Believe Bigger. It's by Marshawn Daniels, I believe. And she talks about split rock moments. And
Mm-hmm.
she talks about this moment where everything cracks. And in the cracking, in this phase where it feels like everything is splitting and shaking and falling apart, these are the moments where it starts to flow out parts of you that you didn't know exist, parts of you that are built for the next level and the next phase of your life. And she really emphasizes the importance of maybe not having, such extreme situations, obviously, but taking these moments that feel rock bottom and that feel messy and looking for who they're allowing you to become.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I don't think that anything is by mistake. I think everything is kind of orchestrated, and I believe that everything that's happened in my life is being used for good, right? If I wouldn't have
Yeah.
walked through that, I wouldn't have the appreciation, that I do today. And the truth is, I would have stayed content in my life. And I think that that's the biggest thing. I would have settled. I would have settled because there was nothing disruptive to kind of question what I was doing, right? Or how I was living. And so it's just really interesting, like you said, to walk through something like that and kind of have everything fall to the side and still see what's standing, and what we can rebuild. And I think that's really, those pivotal moments in my life are really when I started, reading the book The Secret. It's when I started believing that, my words had power, that my thoughts had power, that, everything, that I was consciously creating my life in every single moment. And I went from a place where I felt so vulnerable and so victimized to then this place of empowerment where it was like, no, I get to choose. I get to consciously co-create my life every single day, and just live the life of my dreams. And when you kind of take ownership of that, it will just transform your life, and it's not overnight. It's just waking up every single day, taking one step, doing that one thing. And in the beginning, I'll be honest, I was like, I remember I had this, it was the book The Secret, this little peel off calendar, right? And so each day had like an inspiration. And this was after my cancer. I was going through separation. I was just in a really, really tough place in my life. And I remember every single day, it was the simplest thing, but I would tear off that little message and I would just cling to that. And it's because at that moment, it felt like the only thing positive or going right in my life. And it was like, if I could just focus on that little statement, that little like piece of empowerment every single day, then I started to see, the little miracles, right? Like I started to see the little blessings. And then those things kept adding up. And then it was like, wow, it really is what you choose to focus on, and if your focus is the magic and the miracles and the power that you do have within you to thrive and survive and all of that, if you choose to focus on that and not what's going wrong, what's out of your control, what is making you feel helpless. Every single one of us has inside of us exactly what we need to not only survive, but to actually thrive, right? And I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
we continue to develop skills over time and, we learn new things and um, it's really interesting, but it all goes back to what you choose to focus on every single day. And if you can just take those little moments and just walk in gratitude and be inspired by those things, I feel like that's where I started to see the transformation in my life. And it was slow, but it was just a compound of just little choices and little inspirations and gratitude, honestly.
I love this conversation. And I also just love your faith. And I love this because I think it's really true that when we're in those low points and we're in that shaky part of our life, that we do have to cling to something.
Mm-hmm.
And we have options even in the mess, that we can cling to the things that feel bad and the worries and the concerns, or we can cling to some level of hope or some level of faith or some level of intentional thought. And, I also think that it doesn't have to get to this moment of chaos always for people to change. And I think there is something to be
Absolutely.
said about that sometimes when we are so lost in ourselves or are living a life that is somebody else's, that we are living for people want us to be or want us to do. And there is a moment that comes where the universe has to shake you out of it if you're not going to do it yourself, which is why I always encourage clients. I'm like, hey, listen, if you're not going to slow down, the universe is going to do it for you. It might be an ailment. It might be, a job layoff. Like, I firmly believe that when we're not in our truth, the universe will do everything in its power to ensure we get there, no matter what that has to look like. And so I always encourage people, like, you're going to want to do this before you're not having a choice. Like, at least have a choice. So I love that you keep using that word of choosing and choosing better and choosing. And what I really want to highlight is daily, because the amount of little moments daily that add up to some really big stuff is so vital. It's so underestimated.
Yeah. Very, very true.
So with learning The Secret, with learning, and for people who aren't as familiar with The Secret is a book and movie that they put out, documentary type thing that they put out, gosh, back in like 2006, maybe 5.
Yeah.
It's been out for a while. But they put this book out, and it was basically the beginner's guide to law of attraction. And law of attraction, again, if you're not familiar with manifesting or law of attraction, is the idea that what you believe and what energy you put out of that belief, you receive back to you, and like attracts like. And so I'm curious, like, what little practices, so reading that empowerment notes, but like, what little practices did you find yourself doing differently in the midst of all of this?
It's funny because I would, again, take just the smallest things. Like, if I saw a beautiful sunset, I would just stop and be like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, and I would literally just ask the angels, like, just show me a sign, show me anything. Like, and we can do that all we want. We can say, like, please give me this, right in the sky, and do this and do that. But that's not always how the universe speaks to us. Sometimes it's, somebody in front of us buying us coffee, at Dunkin' Donuts, just to bless us. It is, seeing something beautiful and actually just stopping and believing that that was put in that space for you in that moment, to encourage you. I remember, like, the smallest things, I would find a feather and I would be like, wow, this is awesome. And at one point I was like, am I crazy? Like, I'm walking around like super excited that I found a feather, but it was the compound effect of all of those little things, And so I just started to ask, every single day, just show me that you're walking with me, show me that I'm on the right path, show me that everything's going to be okay, help me to appreciate the little moments. And, something else I've been doing in my life, and I encourage everybody to do, is I've been waking up every morning and I've been saying, universe, show me how I can be a blessing in somebody's life today. Allow me.
I love that.
Yeah. Use me to be a blessing in somebody's life today. And when you wake up and you're on that type of energy, you will see in the little moments how you're being used to encourage other people, to inspire other people, to, be the person who gives them a kind smile, to be the person who actually stops and asks them how they're doing today. Even I remember a couple weeks ago, this was something super simple, but it was when I first started doing this. I woke up and, I said that, just, universe, show me how I can be a blessing in somebody's life today, use me as a blessing. And it was the simplest thing. I went to the grocery store, and it was funny because I didn't want to go to the grocery store. It was it started raining. I was like, ugh, like I'd have a pep talk. Like, why didn't I Instacart this, And so I go into the store, and I'm shopping, and I get to the checkout line, and I see this man walk up behind me, and he just has a box full of groceries, right? And I have a cart, and I only have a couple items, but he's holding his groceries. So I go, sir, you can go ahead of me. He goes, are you sure? Are you sure? I said, yeah, absolutely. I'm in no rush, because I truly wasn't. And I went through the checkout line, and this has never happened to me before, but he stopped. He looked at me and he said, thank you so much. Thank you so much for letting me go first. I said, no problem. And he goes, and I want to buy your groceries. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You don't have to do that. And he's like, no, I want to. You showed me kindness today, and I want you to know how much it's appreciated. And it's funny how quick we are to bless people, but to block their blessing to us.
Yes,
Right. And so
absolutely.
I've really been trying too that when people are trying to bless me, to allow that, because, they may be waking up every single day and saying, universe, use me to be a blessing in somebody's life, and it was just a simple, small thing, but it meant the world to me, and I kind of had to let my ego sit back, the ego that's like, no, no, no,
Absolutely.
I can afford my groceries. I can,
Yes.
and just say, yes, like, thank you. I receive. Thank you. I receive that blessing. And it's just, it will really, truly transform your life if you just wake up every single day in that state of gratitude and also in that state of just service, because every single one of us is doing something here on this earth in our lifetime. And it may not be a huge, grandiose thing where we speak on a stage in front of thousands of people, or, we're the next Tony Robbins or Oprah Winfrey or something like that. It may not look like that, but it may be in the every single day blessing that we are to other people. It may be just how we choose to live our lives that inspire other people to live their lives a little bit different. I've really been standing by. I'm a part of this project called 1B7, and it talks about living differently. And what does that look like? What does living differently look like? It's going to be different for every single one of us, but it does involve waking up and consciously choosing to not be in that, routine, or that just mindset maybe that society would tell us we're to have. It's just choosing to wake up every single day, be of service, be a blessing to others, and allow others to bless you too, because it's all one big circle, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah.
I love that story. It gives me chills. And I also think that as people who are empathic and as people who are natural caretakers, it can be so hard to receive. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
funny because we'll be really good at manifesting, but there is this block in reception, and it is a little ego based of like, no, I can take care of myself and I can take care of everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's this narrative that has been developed that selflessness is the higher state, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that there is such a boundary between that needs to occur between being selfless and receiving, and being selfless and not burning out, and finding that balance of being selfless and selfish to refill, to be able to give. And it's funny because you were just talking about purpose and how, Oprah and you don't have to be on this big stage impacting millions of people. We really underestimate purpose. When I think of a purpose intuitively, and when I do sessions or readings or whatever the case might be, people are always like, I don't know what my purpose is. The reality is your purpose is really just to be the highest expression of yourself.
Yes.
And the light that's within you radiates to everybody around you, and it positively impacts them. And we underestimate the power in just being full within our own light,
Yes.
in being intentional about our day and using that light to be intentional about our day. And I bet that trickle effect of not only you, the person in front of you who paid for your groceries, and the cashier all
Mm-hmm.
had a whole experience throughout the day that probably trickled to their families, that probably, it's such a beautiful domino effect when we're kind and when we're intentional about who we are in the world, and deciding. And what I love about this too is you're not deciding. We do this a lot where we decide we're not enough, or we don't have any, enough to give, or whatever the case might be. And you really, with that intention, set all of that aside
Mm-hmm.
and just say, I know that I'm of the light. I know that I'm an extension of the universe, and just show me how I can be used today. And I love that. That's a big one for me too. It's just use me today in my best and highest good to positively impact another person. Um, so waking up with intention and being and choosing that, I think, because we do get into autopilot. And I
Yeah.
imagine, I know for me, being a young mom, and I was in grad school in my bachelor's program, like while my kids were, 0 through
3 or 4.
Mhm.
And so I always felt on autopilot. And I think a lot of people get into that space. Like, how can someone recognize, do you think, that they're on autopilot?
Um, I would just encourage them to just check in. I just think about like, is what I'm doing today, is what I did today, did that make me feel alive? I mean, did I truly feel alive? Was I able to fully express myself in all of my, beautiful light? Like what you were saying, like, was I able to truly show up as like my God self today? And it's just interesting. I think that, like I said, society and the hustle and bustle, and we have all of these requirements, if you will, that we have to meet on a daily basis, all of these things that are right to do and good to do, and just, and I say all of that with like air quotations, right?
Yes.
But like, is it igniting you from the inside out? Like, do you wake up every single day and you are excited? And it may not be every single day, because let's be honest, like, we are human, right? We all feel different things, and different things affect us. Obviously, we have a lot going on in the atmosphere right now. But when you wake up every single day, do you feel fulfilled? Is what you're doing today getting you closer to what you believe your purpose is? Um, and and you can also measure it by impact. You may not always see the impact that you have. Um, like we were talking about, a lot of times we underestimate, a smile or a kind compliment to somebody. So you may not always see your impact, but really just waking up and looking at your life and saying, am I getting closer to where I want to be? Or am I just kind of spinning my tires? What are your goals? What are your dreams for your life? And I feel like this is where at least I got lost, right? If you would have asked me when I was 24 years old, even 25, 26, when I was walking through my cancer diagnosis and, kind of all of the stuff that happened afterward, if you were to ask me, what are your dreams? I could not tell you in that moment. And here's the thing, we get so bogged down by all of the right and wrong things and all of the routines that we forget to dream. We don't take the time to dream because we're just trying to keep up with everything else. And I'm not saying like some unrealistic, like, I'm going to sell everything I own and like move to a private island in Bermuda, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like, really, like, are you pursuing the best version of yourself every single day? Are you one step closer when you put your head on the pillow? And just what does that look like for you? And for me, I just had so many different areas of my life that were so out of balance. And if I go back and look, when things are out of balance, we can let it slide for a while, but we eventually feel it. If we're putting all of our focus into our career, we're putting all of our focus into, just some other areas of our life, and we're letting go of, our family. We're not being intentional with our family when we're around them. We're on our cell phones. We're not actually like embracing those moments in that space. Like, I'm not showing up as the best mother that I can be. I'm not leaving the legacy with my children that I want to leave because I'm so caught up in the hamster wheel, right? And so
Yeah.
I think just like waking up and, like I said, just being intentional, and but really getting honest with yourself about like, what were my dreams before life got in the way? What are my dreams outside of my roles in my life? Like, how can I pursue the life of my dreams? How can I get one step closer every single day? Because the truth is, like, we don't just close our eyes, chant something, and open them and we're there. It's conscious steps every single day, to get one step closer to that, whatever that looks like for us, and that very well could be, your dream career, or being a stay-at-home mom. That is a dream, and that's underrated too. Like, let's get back to really truly embracing what is right for every single person, and not putting these, you know um regulations from society on people. If your highest choice is, staying home and mothering your children and being present in those moments, like, I vote your victory in that. If it's you choosing to pursue a career because you wake up every single day with that burn in your stomach, to go after that, do that, do that thing. And I just think that sometimes we just talk ourselves out of our dreams because we either believe that they're too big, that they're not meant for us. And, the thing is, we do not have a single dream inside of our heart that is not meant for us or that is not achievable. And there's this quote that I love, and it talks about if you are experiencing lack in any area of your life, it's because the goal that you have set is too small for the God in you.
Ooh, that's a good one. I love that.
Yeah, and I had to reread that a couple times, and I was like, I've just been, and I have to be honest with myself, like, hey, you've been playing small with your life. You've been playing safe with your life. You know that you are capable of this. And even if you don't believe that you're capable of this, work on that. Work on that mindset shift, because if it's in your heart and it's in your mind, you're capable. It's just getting out of those limited beliefs, and getting out of your own head and just moving forward and just banking on yourself. I think so many times we underestimate, we feel victimized in this life when people let us down and stuff. And, people are people, right? And that's going to happen. But we underestimate banking on ourselves. Like, if I can wake up every single day and choose to show up for myself and my dreams, and that's something that nobody else can take from me, and that's powerful. Like, when you choose to step into that power and that greatness, like, you will see that shift. You'll see it.
And I think coming from a place of power is such a different thing. It is coming from a place of being on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much power in connecting with your own power and getting honest with yourself. And I love what you were talking about with whatever that looks like for you, whatever truths you need to uphold. I think there's just such a big societal draw to following the right path, doing the right thing, going the direction other people want you to go, going the successful direction. I have, a client who is a doctor who wanted to, open an art studio. And so, it's this big conflict of what's in your heart versus what society tells you is the best and right thing. Why would you give up a doctorate, for painting? Like, so it's just wild because we really hold a lot of people's perceptions of our life. And when you begin to come back within and you begin to find, and you might need to sit with that. It might have been so long since you've gotten in contact with your soul and with yourself and just felt into that you might need to sit down with a pen and paper and just say, if I'm being honest, because a lot of times we don't want to be honest because honesty makes us scared. It makes us feel like we have to make big decisions that maybe we're not ready to make. But sometimes if we just start the process of getting honest with ourselves of like, wow, this really isn't working for me. I would prefer to do this. I'm really not thrilled here. What I'd really love in this, scenario is this. And if we can get really honest with ourselves, even if we don't tell anybody else, we can start to create shifts in our energy and shifts in our day that lead us to a better result and a better option. So I love this conversation. I think this is going to help a lot of people be more intentional about their lives because, like I said, I think the universe will do it for you if you don't do something about it. And the cool thing is there's so much magic in the world. And I love when you were talking about finding feathers and just having these magical moments. The universe is constantly looking for ways to tell you it's there and constantly looking for ways to remind you and to make moments magical. And so when you start to connect with yourself and when you start to connect with intention and when you start to connect with belief and blessings and the universe, everything starts to feel like so on purpose. Even the stuff that's not awesome still feels like, okay, there must be a reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it shifts your perception. It puts you in a different state, I feel like, especially when you're like what you were saying, when you're walking in that gratitude, even if it's a feather, if it's a rock, if it's the smallest thing, you know, it's one small thing and then another small thing and then another small thing. And those are just building, you know, and it's literally shifting our energy because we're seeing those things and we're stopping and we're saying, thank you. Thank you for sending that. And that gratitude completely shifts our energy.
And it's cool because when you're looking for the universe to be supportive of you, you feel more supported. And I also feel like it trickles down to our children, right? The other night we actually were out on a boat with some friends, and the kids are there. We're tubing. We're having a great time. And the thing about being in the South is southern storms are quick, fast, and hard.
Mm-hmm.
It is like a whirlwind that comes through. So we're out on the boat and the sky just gets black. And I'm like, oh man, we are like a good 20-minute boat ride away from where we were docked. And so the wind starts whipping, and like you can see a sheet of rain up ahead where we have to go. So I'm like, oh man, like the kids need to bunker down and get their, life vests on. And we're heading towards, there, and the rain is like pelting us. Like it hurts. And all of a sudden I hear the kids go, Mommy, look, there's a rainbow. We're going to make it back safe. And I was like, yes, and we did. And the rain actually like let up enough, and we got off the boat, got everything docked, got inside, and it poured. And I just had that moment of like, if you teach yourself to look for the signs, you're also teaching your kids to look for the signs and to know you're supported and to know you're safe and to know those moments like that, where it's not just you against this big storm in your life or, out on a boat, whatever you're at. But I just think there's always something showing up for you if you're looking for it.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I realized too is one of the other practices that I've been in, and I actually learned this from a mentor, Robert Tennyson Stevens. He's amazing. He's
Love him.
His book, Conscious Language, it changed my life. And I went to one of his sessions down in North Carolina, and it was a very, very intense workshop, if you will. And one of the things that we were talking about was shifting our reality, right? And every single thing around us that we see, everything that's showing up in our lives is a mirror. It's just a mirror, right? And so if we really look at it like that, and rather than, because I'm guilty of this, I'm like, I want my child to do this or, feel this way or put in this work or, my mother to do this or that. And he kind of stopped me in my tracks and he said, you have the ability to heal that. If that's showing up in your life, you have the ability to heal that. You just have to walk in it. So if I'm wanting somebody in my life, if I'm seeing, that somebody in my life is like a victim, has kind of a victim mindset, or like they're not healing from different things, like I need to show up and I need to heal the things in my life. I need to address those things in my life. If, I want this for someone else, like I need to start living that way. And it's funny because if we stop shifting the blame kind of and putting it on other people or expecting them to do the work when maybe that's not where they are, if we do it, that's going to show up in our world all around us, right? If we start to heal those things, that's going to show up all around us. That's going to start to heal, within our families, within our relationships, all of those other things. So that was a huge shift for me too, rather than just always kind of sitting back and waiting for things to shift. No, I need to start shifting. Like I need to be that version of myself. That way my world around me is inspired by that. Does that make sense?
I love that. I think one of the most ever told me, I'm thinking Jaron Kenyon, he told me that your current situation is your past manifestation. So if you change the future, you have to change the current thought. And I think about that all the time of if something's showing up, okay, this is just a past manifestation. That just is something I believe to be true in the past. And I don't have to believe it into the future.
Yes. Yes. Especially as we're leveling up in life, right? Like when we're stepping into different levels of consciousness and awareness, like that is powerful. That is powerful. I absolutely love that.
I think that's the cool part about manifesting and being intentional is you can really go from being in a really tough place to deciding that you no longer are that person. That is a past version of you. And in that moment, you can reclaim yourself and you can reclaim your co-creative power and you can create something incredible for your future and moving forward. And and again, it just takes some honesty, some intention, and some clarity and finding a practice that makes sense and works for you. But I
Yes.
think any reality is available to you. And when you start to believe that, everything starts shifting. And there's nobody who will talk me out of manifestation not working. I have manifested the most incredible life for myself from absolute garbage, if
Uh-huh.
I'm being honest. There's nobody who'll be able to look at me and be like, Nichole, manifesting is such BS.
Right.
You know?
It's same. It really does change your life. And the funny thing is that it really is such a spiritual thing because our minds are just like, we try to talk ourselves out of it, right? Exactly what you were saying, because we're so used to this current reality, but we can shift it and change it in any given moment. And you've been a huge person in my life for that, over the years, just in our friendship, watching you and learning from you, and even confiding in you about different things that I've walked through. And I've seen such a shift when I just choose to co-create and like literally intentionally change my reality through manifestation. Absolutely.
A lot of people ask what deepens manifestation. And I think flawlessly for me, I can say every time deepening my connection with the universe or my relationship with God or whatever it is you believe in. I think for me, the key to manifestation is trusting that I'm not alone, trusting that the universe will work it out because it's always in my favor, and trusting that if something I was trying to manifest didn't work out, it's because something better is coming. And so I think trust is such a huge,
Yes.
underestimated part of manifesting in blessings and being in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
That when you can develop that, I was thinking the other day, I used to get so worked up over small things. Some guy was like yelling at the car in front of me because they cut them off, and I was like, man, the little things just don't bother me anymore, and I don't really get worked up in the same way about those kind of things as I would have 5 years ago. And so I think finding that trust, you're finding peace. Well, maybe that person, needs to cut in front of me because they're trying to get to the hospital. I don't know, whatever's going on in their day. And there is just a level of peace that comes with feeling supported and feeling guided by the universe.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, this is good. I love this conversation. I love this. Where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? Because you're going to want to follow Ashley. She posts all this inspiring, awesome content. She's going to have some opportunities to work with her in the future, upcoming pretty close, I believe. So,
Yes. Yes. Very soon. You guys can find me on Instagram. It's Ashley Brink 22. And yeah, I would love for you guys to follow me. And I am going to be starting to work with people just based around this goal achievement, this finding balance in your life and just choosing to live differently and what that looks like. And it goes back to just that day to day, waking up every single day and actually having a plan, actually having action steps to pursue that thing, and just choosing to live differently. Our goal right now is to change 1 billion lives with this framework. And the truth is that if we change one life, if one person's life is changed because they decide to go after their dreams and to find balance in their life and just be more conscious about how they're living, it is going to change the world around us. And more than ever, we need that right now. If we've learned
yeah.
anything, coming out of the wild year of 2020, it's just that, our realities can change and shift in a moment, and in a lot of ways, 2020 was a blessing to so many people, even in the struggles. I think now that we're kind of walking on the other side of it, people are starting to see like, wow, that thing that I thought was going to ruin my life, that was actually a blessing in my life. That career shift for me, that was actually a blessing. That break for me actually made me be a more intentional parent. It helped me to be a more intentional spouse. I finally, because I didn't have all of these distractions, I was able to have fun. I was able to
Yes.
have fun. That was my biggest thing in 2020 was there was so much chaos, and I could have chosen to focus on that, but instead I chose to focus on those moments that were right in front of me, and for me that involved like literally a blow up pool in my backyard with good friends, and my
Yes.
kids. And it's just funny because it just kind of resets you, it resets your priorities. And so I'm really excited. I'm really excited about what's to come. And I would love to connect with anybody that's interested in, really being honest with yourself and your goals and your dreams that you have for your life. So please reach out.
Yes, make sure you follow her. You're going to want to, and make sure you connect with her when that opens up, because this is just energy you're going to want to absorb. Ashley is awesome. So thank you again. I'm so, so happy we had this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Your Soul book and podcast. Take a moment to book a one-on-one session with me or purchase my trainings at NicholeEaton.com. Join the Rock Your Soul Facebook group or follow me on Instagram at NicholeEaton.xo. And if you loved this podcast, don't forget to share it. Thank you.